So we're making our way through the Battletech Game of Armored Combat mechs in here. We're looking at some starting tactics, some things to keep in mind. Starting point with these mechs, with these machines. I've also combined the two-player head-to-head set in here, so we're going to look at those also. And these tactics are based on just what's included in the set. If we're going to get into combined arms, if we're going to get into expanding it by utilizing infantry and tanks, it changes things a little bit. I mentioned that and I talk about that in the part 0 starting video. So in case you're coming to this video from Google search or somewhere else, that's going to kind of set up the parameters that tactically what I'm basing things on. We looked at the Locust to start out, so I guess we're making our way based on weight class. I was going to kind of jump around and look at my favorite mechs first, but I have to say, out of all the mechs in here, this starter set is fantastic. There's really not a bad mech, a bad machine that you will never use, and all of these mechs here are my favorite. The problem with this set is I love every single mech and I want to play every single mech with it, but then if I'm just utilizing this set, I'm not playing with my friends then on it, right? So let's look into the Commando here. So a light mech, what we've been considering and keeping in mind with light mechs is the fact that you have very, very little armor. You've got a little bit more here than the Locust, but not by much. And certainly some of the assault mechs in this set are beast with what they've included. And that's good. We want the big guns. I mean, we want the really powerful machines. But be under no illusion, if you go head to head with an assault mech or a heavy mech, you're going to be scrapped instantly. Or if you survive by some miracle, your mech is going to be so messed up and so damaged, essentially it's going to be functionally non-committal for the rest of the game on there. So we want to, if we have to direct head-to-head, go head-to-head, toe-to-toe, medium mechs, but even there it's a little bit scary, or we want to go against the Locust or the other light mech. What keeps you alive, so that's just a way of saying armor is not going to keep you alive, and you don't have any wiggle room to make a mistake. With the assault mechs and the heavy mechs, you go toe-to-toe, you make a mistake, tactically your opponent gets lucky, not that you want to lose armor, you could do that for a turn. I'm not saying you want to do that, you could do it. The light mechs, absolutely you cannot. You cannot afford to get hit. So the way that you do that is by constantly moving. We're not as fast as a Locust, but we can run 9 hexes. We can walk 6. So what that means is I want to be running like crazy. The Commando does not have jump jets on here. That's going to change things a little bit with maneuverability, but not as much with the core set simply because I'm not facing other lights with jump jets. That really gives light mechs with jump jets, put it in a whole new tactical level, and including 2 mechs that don't have it, I think it's balanced out. So for now, we don't have to worry about that, but the Commando needs to keep on moving. It has missiles, and it has a medium laser. So missiles are interesting in Battletech because there's a spread based on how you roll, how many hit, and striking different areas on the mech. They're going to spread out, as opposed to something like the medium laser, which is going to hit, it's going to do consistent damage on there. It's going to do that 5 points of damage, but it's only to one area. So the way that the Commando works is, well, I guess like a Commando type mech. You want to utilize your speed to get behind other mechs. Now, if I'm an assault mech, generally in Battletech, you always want to try and get rear armor. You always want to try and get behind your opponent. Of course, this is the back and forth. You're not going to let me just roll up behind you on there. But going behind an assault mech or a heavy mech, not that the assault or heavy has to worry immediately, it can take a turn or two. If you get this mech behind one of the medium mechs in the starter set, they're going to have a problem because the Commando has the speed to do it, running 9. It has the spread of missiles where when you're attacking from behind, let's just use the armor here for a second. I don't really care about, I don't want to hit in the legs or the arms, unless they're so low they're going to get blown off. I want to score the rear armor hits on here and immediately go to the center torso and immediately start going to these, checking for crit, confirm crit, gyro hits, engine hits, ammo hits, all that type of stuff in there. So the fact that this has missiles, meaning on the spread, it increases the chance when you're attacking from the rear of hitting that center or rear ammo. The Commando's a kind of a light, nasty little brawler type mech on there. It also has hands, so you will be punching. I don't recommend kicking with light mechs simply because they don't have the tonnage to do crazy damage, and there's a chance that you're going to fall if you miss and you fail your pilot check. And if that happens, the very thing that's keeping you alive, mobility, is done. So let's talk tactically for the Commando on how to get back there and how to utilize it. And I'm going to simplify things a little bit because naturally it's going to depend on the other mechs with what we're playing, and it's going to depend on the hex map. There's a couple of other variables, but I'll give you the template. So we're going to take the Commando, and let's take, here's my machines, and we're going up against a mech here. When two mechs work together, obviously as a lance, 4 mechs, you want to stick together. But there are times where, based on the mission, you need to break off and achieve mission goals or deal with things. Essentially breaking things down, wingmate, right? Wingman, 2 to 1, that type of stuff. I really don't want to break down and send 1 mech to engage or 1 mech. I want to have 2 mechs working together. And usually based on the tonnage, the heavier mech is in the front and the weaker mech is in the back. What we're going to look to do when I'm facing, at some point in the game, and again, this is modified by the mechs a little bit, we're going to be about 2 or 3 hexes away. At this point, we have now committed, and I call this danger close. It's going to be very hard to disengage on here. So imagine if I just pull this off. If we're this close, and I start taking damage, I'm going to internals, I'm getting a little bit worried. If I start to back up, I can only walk backwards. You can run forward. If I go to turn and move away this way, that's going to expose side armor. That's going to expose rear armor. I want to keep all of my weapons, because for the most part, in most mechs, your weapons are facing forward, torso, arms. I want to be squared off. So essentially when we're 3 to 4 hexes away, or if I have very close weapons, maybe closer, when we're locked 3 to 4 hexes away, we're engaged. At this point, the Commando, that's where you want to run out and try to move to the side. So if I'm here and I now move out to here, and I turn to face, that's almost about 9 hexes on there. What is this mech going to do? If it turns to face the Commando, and it might, at least I've got the modifiers of speed to protect me. Now this is going to expose side armor, or based on initiative, if I move that first, then you move, and you move to here, I can move here on initiative and now get rear armor. So we're kind of pinning in place, and then we're flanking with the other mech. So at this point, the Commando moves up. The Commando will move behind on there, and it might even be at medium range, and you're going to get that rear armor. That rear armor with the SRM-6, the SRM-4, and the medium laser, it's really, really interesting on it. Okay, Fritz, I have to break the mech off to 1 because, look, we've always got a plan, but things just, it's Battletech. Things get crazy. Mission parameters are changing in the moment. If I'm going to run the Commando solo, then I use this as a run and gun type mech. I will use this to run up to maybe long range or medium range on the short range missile packs, fire them out. A skirmish mech. It puts out a low amount of damage compared to the other mechs, but of course it's a light mech. But in terms of a light mech, it does put out a little bit of a bite. It's going to annoy your opponent if you start hitting him with that Commando. So utilize that speed to keep it moving, fire, and then pull back. Use it to run up, fire, and then pull back. That would be the secondary way. The primary way is to use this as a bodyguard mech going in. Don't forget your fists. 1 in 6 chance of hitting the head, even though you don't have the tonnage. Brawling with fists is very important because while you don't have the tonnage, you hit a headshot, you force your opponent to take a consciousness check on here. And it might seem like that first check, passing on the 3 or more, crazy stuff has happened. It's Battletech. So anytime you can force your opponent to roll dice, interesting stuff is going to happen on there. So the 3A variant. This is it's a little bit, I understand why they included it in the set, to give you a flamer, to give you some mission tactics, possibly burning out woods, or perhaps burning an ammo dump or exploring and things. Essentially what you're doing is you're swapping, you're downgrading to the flamer, and you're upgrading your short-range missile 6-pack on here. This mech is a lot deadlier with being able to attack from behind. The challenge with it is you think since it's a flamer, you're going to run up and flame a mech. I mean, that's one of the things in Battletech that the rules are very seductive. Like, yeah, I'm going to run up, I'm going to flame a mech, and I'm going to cause it to take some heat. And it sounds really cool. And I've done it, with a fire starter and other mechs, but it's a novelty. You can't afford to do that with this light mech because you're going to run up there to the range on the flamer. Because remember, there's the movement modifier, your movement modifier, running, walking, your opponents of running, walking, how many hexes they've moved. I want to be up point blank. I want to be 1 hex away. Challenge with that is if I'm 1 hex away, you're also 1 hex away. So your shooting modifiers are down low, and potentially we might be, that's a pretty heroic pose right there, though, to punch. We're also possibly punching. And as a light mech, I don't want to be on the receiving end. So I find this variant interesting in that it wants to encourage you to get closer, especially with the upgrade to 2 SRM6s. I want to get closer on there, but a little bit harder, a little bit trickier to utilize as a light mech in it. Let's jump into the Griffin next. That will be part 3 as we're making our way through the Battletech Game of Armored Combat set.